Thanks again, Zaria. What a great
Welcome.
introduction. I really appreciate everyone who's joining us today. I do have a tendency to talk fast. It's only because I have a lot of information to cover. And I will tell you that it's always an honor and a privilege to talk to people who are in anywhere in their certification journey, but primarily to people who are getting ready to take the exam because usually if it's in an unfortunate situation and they haven't done so well the first time, after I talk to them, I usually give the same advice I'm going to give you today. They always say to me, "Gosh, I wish I'd talked to you before I took the exam the first time." So, without further ado, I am going to get into helping you prepare for the SHRM-CP or the SHRM-SCP. I'm going to give you advice. I'm going to give you a lot of tips, and I'm going to give you some tools to drive your success. One of which is the SHRM certification study guide that Zaria just spoke about. And yeah, actually, that's a great place to start because it describes a lot of stuff. So let's dive in. So I am here to help you take your career to the next level, and I want you to think about what motivates you to take this exam. I'm going to share some information based on data. SHRM studies everything. We have a lot of data. We want to know what motivates people to take the SHRM certification exam so we can meet them where they are on their journey. We're very much into that. Everyone's unique, and we like to be able to provide whatever services, products, programs we need to in order to help you where you are to meet your career goals. So, from previous exams, SHRM, CP, and SCP test takers, there are personal motivators and there are work-related motivators. And I think that these are actually in priority order, meaning the top to bottom, they are the most common reasons that people are motivated personally to take the exam and motivated work-related wise to take the exam. Maybe one of these resonates with you. I will say that the ones on the top of the list, probably the first three on the top of the list on the personal side, enhance your credibility, continue your learning and development, and it'll look good on your resume and help you stay competitive, are pretty far ahead of the other three, enhancing career satisfaction, sense of achievement, and you proving to yourself that you have the knowledge and the competence in HR. But all six of them consistently show up in our post-exam research, meaning that if you take the test, you're presented with a quick survey at the end while we're calculating your pass, did not pass decision. These consistently are the top six for personal motivation. For work-related motivators, again, in order top to bottom, more confidence in abilities, decision-making, and skills, increasing potential for promotions. And our research also shows that about 9 to 10% of people who earn the CP get a promotion within the first year or expanded job duties, or a one-time bonus or something like that, or a pay increase. And for the SCP, it's about 14 to 15%. So that's a big work-related motivator to either get a promotion or a pay raise. And then the third one is to enhance your credibility of the entire HR department. Many people anecdotally write in comments on the survey and say that when we do the HR career study of everybody who's certified and everybody who took the exam but didn't get certified, most certified people tell us that their boss started giving them more responsibility, and that greatly enhanced the credibility of the entire HR department too. So some people's supervisor pursue them to take advise them to pursue the certification, and in some instances, it's a requirement of their job or their education program. So there are master's degrees and bachelor's degrees that couple earning the CP or the SCP with graduation. So when you enter the job market as a newly minted HR degree program graduate, you also have your SHRM certification that gives you an additional leg up in the market. So SHRM certification is something that definitely helps you demonstrate your advanced knowledge and how you put your abilities and your skills into practice. I describe the different kinds of test questions that show up on the exam, which we'll get into in a little bit, as divided into two halves. Half of it is telling us what you know and what you know how to do. And the second half tested by situational judgment tests. And I'll remove the fear of situational judgment tests for you too. The situational judgment tests are answering questions that show us that you have decision-making skill and problem-solving skill using what you know how to do. So using what you know and what you know how to do to solve problems and make decisions. That is really bottom line what the exam is all about. So how does it enhance your expertise? As I mentioned earlier, there's recognition for having earned the certification, which sometimes manifests itself in more responsibility, different duties, higher level duties. It enhances the credibility with your peers and organizational leaders, and that is shown by the type of work that you are now going to be doing. I mentioned that it increases earning potential, 14 to 15% higher than peers who do not earn a certification. And the little asterisk, which I just realized is missing, but that asterisk refers to the most recent HR careers study where we gather data on all of that information. We run that research every year. It also advances HR careers. And I think it's important to point out that HR executives also consistently tell us that they look for SHRM certification when they're considering hiring someone. Many of them don't require it just yet, but about 60% of them do. 71% of HR executives, however, in our latest research study, that the HR career study also said that it increases the likelihood of getting a promotion. And the stat that I didn't include, but I'll tell you, is in that same survey, 92% of executives said that HR executives said that for their teams, it is going to be critical for their team members to earn and hold a SHRM certification in the future. So that's probably some good food for thought if you were thinking, do I do this? Do I not do this? And we'll get into a good pathway for moving forward in a minute after you decide that you want to do it. So what makes SHRM certifications different from all other certifications? The CP and the SCP, the certified professional and the senior certified professional, are based on the competencies and behaviors outlined in the SHRM body of applied skills and knowledge, also known as the SHRM-BASK. Sometimes we shorthand it to the BASK, but it's all the same thing. The SHRM-BASK is the basis for the exam. So I'm going to dispel a common misunderstanding right off the bat. The test is on the contents of the SHRM body of applied skills and knowledge. I will talk in a little bit about how to study and how to prepare, and I will tell you that the people who pass the most often and at higher rates than people who don't use anything that SHRM provides study two things that SHRM provides. One's free, the body of applied skills and knowledge, download it from the SHRM website, and the SHRM learning system. So I talk in terms of it's critical to understand what you're being tested on. I call it what's fair game to be tested on. It is contained in the SHRM-BASK. That is, you can download for free from the SHRM website under the learning brick, and then there's a link to certification. But it is critical that you master content of concepts that are likely or potentially going to be tested on the exam by studying the SHRM learning system. It's the best teaching and learning resource out there. It's a very comprehensive tool. It covers a lot of information, and I'll help you navigate both the BASK and the learning system to figure out what you need to study deeply and what you just need to review. So another thing that differentiates the SHRM exams is that it's designed to verify and validate your expertise. So your expertise in knowing things and knowing how to do things, and your expertise in knowing what best practice behavior looks like, in practice so that you make good decisions and you solve problems well based on the best practice behaviors that are outlined in the behavioral competencies shown in the SHRM-BASC. There are two levels of credentialing, the CP and the SCP, and the only way to earn the test, to earn the certification, is by passing the test. And then you sustain it through continuous professional development and recertification. So let's talk about the test. And Zaria, I will tell you, I do not have the skill of being able to monitor chat and speak at the same time. So if there's a critical question I need to answer now, if you could please tell me, I appreciate it. So, because I see some things popping into the chat and I just don't have the ability to do that. I can't
Oh, no
multitask.
problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
if I
Thanks.
see anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
the test itself, they're all computer-based, they're administered. Oh, I have a mistake here. We had to eliminate remote proctoring, so they're only offered in testing sites. Um, I will tell you briefly that it basically boils down to there was a major security breach and there was a lot of cheating. So no more remote proctoring. So go to a Prometric test site, 3 hours and 40 minutes for the whole test. If you have any anxiety about not being able to test remotely, I wouldn't have any anxiety about that. We only tested remotely for like 3.5 years, and the program's 11 years old. Prometric has the largest in-person testing network in the entire world, and we're always able. If you can't find a testing center, we're usually able to find you a testing center to take the test if you can be a little bit flexible on your date. I will also tell you that if you are determined to take the exam in the last 2 weeks of the testing window, you need to choose your test date at your test center as soon as you sign up for the test, because 60% of the candidates every testing window take the exam in the last 2 weeks of the 10-week testing window. So don't dilly-dally. The test has 134 questions. There are knowledge-based items. There are situational judgment items. There are unscored field test items. Those are items across both knowledge and situational judgment items. Field test items are nothing more than we got to try them out to see if they're worthy to be scored in the future. So you answer all 134 questions. You won't know which ones are the field test questions. And we need you to answer all 134 because we need to be able to have 110 of the scored ones answered to come up with the best chance of passing. And we need you to answer the 24 field test because we need your input on whether or not these are good items. If they're not good items, we're not going to put them on a scored set in the future. The test covers the 9 behavioral competencies and the 14 HR functional areas covered in the BASC. 200 is the score, the scaled score to pass. That's the minimum scaled score required to pass. This is a good time to plug the study guide that Zaria referred to. It actually comes as a free resource in the learning system if you're a learning system user. Otherwise, it's available through SHRM Store. There is a great explanation in there of exactly how scoring works. So whereas 200 is the minimum score required to pass, the scaled scores range from like 120 to 280. It's just that once you've met the minimum required to pass, there's no point in reporting scores above that because you passed. So we don't actually calculate anything above 200, even though technically the scaled scores run above that number. You just need 200 to pass. So now we're going to get into the advice section. I'm going to try to give you some fabulous advice. The SHRM certification exams definitely follow a process. And this is based on research, of course. I mentioned earlier that we study everything. We study when people apply, when they start studying, when they make their appointment, how many times they change to a different testing window, all that kind of stuff. There is a pathway that leads to success the most often, and it does not include changing to the next testing window. People who have a tendency to transfer, you are allowed to do that one time, and we do understand that life happens and sometimes changes are required, but it's too much of a temptation to never actually commit to the process and get it over the finish line, which is discouraging to me. One of the other unfortunate data points that led us to socializing this pathway to success is that something like 14 to 15% of applicants every window never do anything other than apply. And I don't know why you would do that to yourself either. So I'm going to give you the proven pathway. This pathway results in people passing more often than not. So you need to make the decision which exam you're going to take, and you need to commit to fitting it into your life and making it happen. Then you need to start preparing. So that might sound a little counterintuitive, but it just so happens that the candidates who complete this entire process in 4 to 5 months, meaning with the fifth month, fourth to fifth month being your test date, pass the most often using the SHRM-BASC and using the SHRM learning system. So you need to start preparing first. Most people start studying the learning system about 4 to 5 months before test day. And then they apply again in short order after they start studying, but applying and making your appointment. Then you basically keep preparing, keep preparing, keep preparing, commit to your test date. It also isn't helpful if you change your test date. So it's something that I recommend you give careful thought and consideration to what do you want your timeline to be, and then commit to it. So decide, prepare, apply, make your appointment, take your test as you've scheduled it, and then voila, hopefully pass the test. And then you start the recertification process. I won't say a lot about the recertification process today, but the basic thing you need to know is that the cycles are 3 years and it is based on your birth month. So your first certification period would end 3 years in your birth month after the day you pass the exam. So my example is I passed the exam in January, but my birthday is November. So my first certification period was almost 4 years because it was 3 years plus then to the end of November. So because if they would have done it in November the year before, I would have been cheated out of the 3 years. So we don't do that. We don't cheat people out of stuff. So that's basically it. Same example with June. Your birthday's in June, you pass the exam in May. So it's 3 years from day number one that you passed, but it doesn't end until the end of June because that's your birth month. So research shows this path leads to success most often. Start preparing, then choose the level exam previews, leverage the exam previews to choose the right exam. The biggest mistake people make is taking the wrong exam. 1 in 5 applicants takes the wrong exam. And again, that is based on research because we study who takes what level exam, what kind of job they do every day. The work that you do day in and day out is what dictates the level of exam you should take. The biggest mistake we see happening is that people who do not or have not already had a minimum of 3 years of strategic level experience, take the SCP, even though they do operational level work every day. Those are the people who fail the most often. So don't do that to yourself. Read the eligibility requirements and choose the exam based on your work you do every day And then there's a new tool that you have available to you through SHRM Store. If you want to see what the questions look like and make sure it's the right level exam, if you're still thinking, no, I still want to go for the SCP, you can buy an SCP exam preview online. It's a half-length exam, and it gives you feedback that shows you why the right answers are the right answers. So if you're questioning whether or not the SCP is right for you, or if you're thinking about taking the SCP, but you're like, well, I supervise a ton of people that already hold the CP. Maybe I should take the CP first and then upskill. A lot of people do that too. You can take the exam previews online. There are multiple ones available if you want to do that as an extra indicator of data of like, wow, this is going to help me choose the right exam, make sure I'm taking the right one. Survey research shows that individuals who study the SHRM-BASC, that's the free resource, and then the learning system, and then add additional resources like the exam previews, the study guide, the workbooks. There's additional workbooks that are available also through SHRM Store that supplement the study guide. They pass more often. The most recent data, I mentioned 4 to 5 months earlier, but the most recent data, based on the last 4 testing windows, has now shortened that timeline to 3 to 4 months before your intended test date. So start the process 3 to 4 months before your intended test date. You apply online through the SHRM Store. If you're a member, make sure you select that you're a member person first, because there are member discounts for being a SHRM member on everything, by the way, not just the exam, learning system, exam previews, study guides, you name it. And then make sure that you review the exam eligibility requirement. And if you've decided to take a SHRM preview, let that weigh into your decision too. And then as soon as you apply, you'll receive an authorization to test letter with all the information on how to make your appointment. Excuse me. So then it's time to move on to step 4, to committing to your test date and make your appointment through Prometric. There's web links and phone numbers in the authorization to test letter. The most successful candidates approach choosing their test date very carefully and then commit to that date from day one. Then you just keep studying, take the test on the date that you selected. So here's the data that I've been talking to you that supports why this is the proven path to success. There's a lot of little bars here, but the most important ones, the 77% for the CP, and CPI is just the international edition of the exam. The international edition of the exam removes the employment law questions and makes up that area of the test blueprint with other questions from that knowledge domain. So the dark blue on the SCP, on the CP, means that they use the BASC, the learning system, and the study guide. Next up is they used both the BASC and the study guide. 75% is used both the SHRM-BASC and the learning system. So, and then it keeps going in a different way. The pass rate is substantially lower for those who didn't use anything from SHRM-BASC study guide, or the learning system. SCP is a little bit different. There's pretty much consistency for SCPs and SCPIs on the either use both the SHRM-BASC and the learning system, the BASC and the study guide, or all three. But that's the data that supports my assertion so far in this webcast there's a pathway that leads to success more often than not. So the ideal test prep timeline is 2 to 3 months of prep prior to testing. The entire process is 3 to 4 months, including the decide functionality. And the sweet spot for how many hours to study is 80 to 100 hours outside any of, if you decide to take a course, you can adjust that accordingly. It's important not to overstudy, because then my experience tells me that candidates just start to confuse themselves or get too much inside their own heads, start to negative talk and themselves and psych themselves out. And we don't want you to do that, because the primary piece of advice I'll give you is that this is a test not only on the new content you're mastering, but basically on your experience too. I always talk about it in terms of it's half knowledge mastery and half work experience. So don't overlook everything that you've learned, what you've learned how to do, and how you've learned to use the knowledge you have to make decisions and problem solving up until the point that you start studying for the exam. That is potentially the biggest mistake you could make, to not give yourself credit for everything that your career has already taught you. So now let's talk a little bit about some tools. How am I doing on time? Oh yeah, I got time. So the eligibility requirements, these are the CP is the one that's for people who do work in of an operational nature, and your role has a tendency to be specialized. We do recommend that you have a basic working knowledge of HR, although it does also address the needs of people who are earning a degree, meaning that they're pursuing a career in HR. This is basically the 0 to 2 years people, or 0 to 3 years people. But again, choosing the exam based on the type of work you do every day. Most recent or current work is operational in nature. For the SCP, I always say choose it only if you already have a work history of at least 3 years performing strategic level or HR duties. That's the most important thing for the SCP decision. I'll get into the held the CP for 3 years in a second. So you're driving culture, you're creating strategy, you develop policy, the entire integrated HR function reports to you. So you lead HR. There's nobody higher than you in HR. You're probably reporting to the CEO. That's the kind of position and the work required to be eligible for the SCP. Now, I will tell you that a lot of candidates who already hold the CP actively develop because everyone wants to seek higher level positions. So, we do have a special program in place that helps you figure out what are the kinds of stretch assignments I should be taking, so that you reach a point where you're in the process of transitioning to a strategic level role and you're prepared. Those individuals may also be eligible to take the SCP. So step one, prepare step one. Start here with the blueprint. This is what the SHRM-BASC currently looks like online. When you click on the button that says download the SHRM-BASC, this is what you're going to get. It covers the 9 behavioral competency areas and the 14 HR functional areas. And what I mean by that is it provides all the definitions of the competency itself, any sub-competencies that go with it, key concepts, and performance indicators. So what are performance indicators? Performance indicators are how well you need to know or be able to perform that information at work every day. Then, strong recommendation to study the SHRM learning system. It has mobile access and e-reader capability. It's a comprehensive online resource aligned directly with the SHRM-BASC, and it provides a personalized learning experience. You're going to have the opportunity to take a pre-test in the learning system to target your learning. Same exercise that I recommend that you do with the SHRM-BASC, which is to, when you're reading the SHRM-BASC, highlight the things that you do all the time that you've got down cold. Those are things you're going to want to review. If you use a different color highlighter to review the things like, I'm not even sure what they're talking about, and trust me, even after all this time and being responsible for it, sometimes I go into the SHRM-BASC and I'm like, I'm not sure I know what that means. I better investigate that. So highlight the things that you don't know what we're talking about, or you're not really sure that you do this, or you only occasionally supervise somebody else that does that. Those are the things you're going to want to go back into the learning system and master the content a little bit more deeply by studying a little bit more deeply. So in the SHRM learning system, the pre-test helps you do that too, helps you categorize the things that you should study deeply versus review. The tools, there are tons of tools that help you plan, track, and adjust as you're on your way for the learning your learning journey toward taking the exam. There are more than 2,500 practice questions in there. I will tell you that the one caveat to that, though, don't overtake the practice quizzes because they're not written in the same structure, format, and sometimes cover the content differently than the operational tests. So you don't want to master answering the quiz questions in the learning system. You want to make sure you understand and master the content. There are two assessments in the learning system that are made up of recently administered but now retired operational test questions. Those are the pre-test and the timed practice test that's designed to be like a post-test. It even prepares a score report that will mirror what you get when you take the exam. So those are the only two tests that are made up of recently retired and recently administered and recently retired items that used to be on live exams. The rest of the items in the SHRM learning system are similar, but not exactly the same. So step two is preparing is to look at the preview options and help you decide which exam to take. Yes, you can use both options. Option one is to take a half length or a targeted preview exam. And the option B is to preview 10 items online at each exam level. And I've included the link to do that for free. The option A at the left, it does have a cost associated with it. The current options include two half-length editions of the CP, two half-lengths of the SCP, and one shorted exam, meaning it just has fewer items on it. I think there's 30 that are focused only on situational judgment items, which people have a tendency to have a lot of anxiety about, but I will explain why and how to overcome that in a minute. So step number two is to prepare using the study aids. We talked about the SHRM certification. It also has 70 unique retired exam practice question items in it. Remember, it also comes, this title says 50, but this is an old picture, to be honest with you. There are 70 questions in there. So sorry about that. They are also retired questions. This is also available for free in your SHRM learning system if you buy the SHRM learning system. The preparing for the SHRM-CP and SCP exam study books that go along with the study guide have an additional 70 questions. And those are the ones that are available for purchase on the SHRM store. Then step three is apply and schedule. Here's how you apply online. Then you receive the authorization to test by email, and then here's where you schedule. And then here's what a typical application and testing year looks like. The first test window usually has an application from early January through mid-May, with testing occurring May 1st through July 15th. And the second window is an early June through mid-December application period, and December 1 through February 15th of the following year. Here's the link to look at the current fees online. We offer student, military, and corporate pricing too, and your fee includes a non-refundable fee. So the fees are not refundable. Don't worry though, if life happens and there's an emergency, you can always ask for a hardship exception. So now, in our last few minutes, I'll talk about the top test taking tips, and then I'll answer questions for about 10 minutes. So absolutely use the SHRM BASC as your starting point. Do what I recommended with the 2 highlighters. You're going to get a good overview of the content that is fair game to be tested on the exam. And when you're looking at the behavioral competencies, in particular, these 9 areas up here at the top of the honeycomb, those questions are all written at the sub-competency level and are testing best performance behavior. So while you will never see the performance indicators verbatim as a response option, if you understand what exceptional best practice performance looks like in practice by being familiar with the performance indicators for the 9 behavioral competencies, you'll likely be able to discern which of the 4 options presented aligns with the best course of action to take or the most effective course of action to take. So tip number 2 is understanding the 2 types of questions. There are 80 knowledge items and 54 situational judgment items. Knowledge items test 1 piece of knowledge. They have 1 clearly correct answer called the key that is linked to a source. And the other 3 are what are called plausible but incorrect distractors. I'll talk about distractors in a minute, but there is only 1 correct answer. 54 situational judgment items test behavior, judgment, decision-making, problem-solving. And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to choose the best or most effective course of action. I should have an asterisk that says, based on your understanding of what proficient behavior looks like in practice, which you're going to become familiar with by studying the SHRM-BASC, and in particular, the proficiency indicators. So use the functional areas to address the knowledge items. These are all divided into the people, workplace, and organization domain. Again, 1 correct answer, 3 plausible but incorrect distractors. Refer to the proficiency indicators for the SJI. So these are the proficiency indicators for all professionals, is for CP candidates. SCP, you need to be familiar with both. So choose the best, most effective course of action from the 4 options, which will range from least effective to most effective. They won't be arranged that way on the screen, but there's always a least effective, there's always a most effective, and then there's some mediocre ones in the middle. Remember that the test tests the SHRM-BASC. We don't know what your way of doing things is. We don't know what your company's way of doing things is or your industry's way. There's 1 definition of universal best practice put together by HR professionals. That's right, you guys helped us define this is what the profession is, what's contained in the SHRM-BASC. That's what is tested. So try to not put a personal, organizational, or industry lens on when you're choosing the best or most effective option. So navigating the exam is a good tip to remember that there are 110 scored questions, 24 unscored, 2 sections up to 1 hour and 50 minutes per section. How to gauge your timing. So 110 minutes per section means on average there's 98 seconds for each question. I recommend that you get out your stopwatch and watch 98 seconds tick away. It'll seem like a lifetime. Then open up a set of practice questions, maybe in the learning system or in your study guide, and then set your timer for 98 seconds and see how many questions you can answer. That's your natural pace of answering questions. That's how long you take to answer questions. Then that way, when you're in the test on test day, you don't need to be obsessed with the clock, but I would recommend glancing at the clock at maybe question 32 or 33, and then again at question 60. And if you still have about a half an hour left or more when you get to question 60, you're not going to run out of time. A word about breaks and flagged questions. There's 1 optional break. Most people don't take a break, but if you do, just raise your hand and tell the proctor I need to take a break. Keep in mind that the clock keeps ticking and they will need to check you in. These days they've started stopping the clock if the check-in process is taking too long so you don't lose too much time, or more than 15 minutes, I should say. You must review all the flagged and unanswered items before you finish each section. So do not click end section or end exam until you've addressed all of your flagged items and answer them. So keys to success, again, not testing your way, your company, your industry, but we do test for the SJIs, the sub-competencies, and your mission is to choose the best or most effective course of action from the 4 options presented. For knowledge items, they test the 14 knowledge areas and the key concepts of the the behavioral competencies. So key concepts and behavioral competencies are the knowledge components of the behavioral competencies. That's why we test them with knowledge items. These are the ones with the 1 clearly correct, I call it the irrefutably correct key, and 3 plausible, meaning believable, but clearly incorrect distractors. So gearing up for test day, 1 month before, make sure your ID is valid. They won't let you in if it's expired. If you do that a month beforehand, check and see if it's still valid. You have time to fix it. Do you know where the test center is? Do you want to know where to park? Request to take the day off before the exam. A caveat to that is no studying the day before the exam. You're just overstudying at that point. 2 weeks to 1 week before exam day, take a test drive to the test center. I recommend on the same day of the week you're taking the test at the same time. Figure out where to park, figure out how long it's going to take to walk to the building. Then actually take the day off. You requested it a month before. Now actually take it off from work or school if at all possible. No studying before the day before the exam. That's so you can focus and center your thinking, positive thinking only, no negative thinking. Get a good night's sleep the night before after you've spent the day before focusing on success. On the exam day, eat a good meal, but not one that's going to upset your stomach. Arrive to this test center early, but certainly not late. If they have room and you arrive early, they'll take you and you can be done quicker. Ask for the noise canceling headphones if they don't automatically offer them to you. You can take a break if it's needed. You may now have 1 clear bottle with no label on it, with containing water only. Everything else goes into a locker. Oh, and don't wear any jewelry except wedding rings. Everything's scanned, including you and your clothes. So tip number 8, false stuff. Don't look for the SHRM answer. There isn't a SHRM answer. SHRM team, although we are certified, our expertise is test development. So SMEs, subject matter experts who are already certified, write all of the test questions using the SHRM-BASC as their only guide, and test development principles like how long a stem can be, or an item, how long a response option can be, etc. Another myth is shortest answer is usually wrong, the longest answer is usually right. I've heard it the opposite way too. All of it's wrong. The questions get more difficult as you move through the exam. That's called an adaptive test, and there's only one out there. It's called the SAT. Nobody else does it. If technology ever gets there, we might do that, but no, that doesn't currently happen. Interesting myths, but still wrong. Every question really has a hidden meaning. Nope. We try very hard to eliminate anything that could even potentially be viewed as tricky. Another interesting myth, clues to the answer in the way the questions and answers are written. Nope. There are strict guidelines on how long a question can be, how many words, how long response options can be. They all have to be within a certain number of words long of the correct answer. So, don't try to like psych out the test. There's no trickiness going on here. We're just asking you questions so you can tell us what you know how to do, and that you know how to use what you know to make good decisions and solve problems. Another interesting but wrong question is that that question can't be that straightforward. Sure, it can. We're not, like I said, we don't write the questions, other HR professionals do. And I don't know an HR professional that would purposely try to trip up another HR professional. I just don't think that's part of the code. Plausible but wrong. If I don't know an answer, I should leave it blank, and the corollary to that is points will be deducted if I guess wrong. Nope. Educated guessing is encouraged because if you can eliminate the two that are obviously wrong and then reason it out between the remaining two, if you guess right, you get a point. If you guess wrong, you don't get a point. But what if you guess right? Guessing is encouraged. So don't leave anything blank. Honor these truths, positive mindset. Do not psych yourself out. Why would you do that to yourself? Please only have positive thinking. Focus by using your time wisely, leveraging breaks after telling the proctor. One example of that is somebody told me that they calm themselves down in testing situations by closing their eyes and breathing deeply to the count of 20. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Just tell the proctor so they don't think you're sleeping. SJRs are real stories from real HR pros. True. They have been vetted through HR pros and written by HR pros so that we can ensure the situations are common ones that most HR pros across the world have experienced. Read carefully everything. Read the entire question and all the response options before answering. Make sure the question that you're being asked, not what you think is asking. So a corollary to that is no need to try to add words or argue with the question. Every word you need is right there to answer the question is right there on the screen. Answering carefully, no penalties for guessing, trust your first impressions. I always say don't change your answers on flagged items unless you were wrong. You're 100% sure you were wrong in the first place. So what might that look like? You missed a key word. You read the question too quickly and you missed a key word. Yeah, then change your answer. A response option may be a true statement that does not answer the questions. That's just good test writing for distractors. So if the question is about T&D and one of your response options is a compensation and benefits intervention, that's not the right answer. So don't pick it. Most important truth, exam is half knowledge mastery, half experience. See the SHRM-BASC for what the knowledge is you need to master. Please, please, please give yourself credit for everything that you have gained knowledge-wise and experience-wise across your career. So, final words of advice. SHRM is committed to you being successful on the exam, but know your stuff. Don't wing it. There's not an exam you can cram for. You need to practice as many practice questions as you can, but don't obsess on mastering the answers to the practice questions. Make sure you've mastered the content. Avoid any anxious thoughts. I'm going to ask everybody to commit to me right now that you're not going to have any negative self-talk, only positive self-talk. Remain calm and breathe. Don't get too much inside your head or overthink things. That goes along with the only positive self-talk mantra. Answer the question that you're being asked. Right there's my little piece of advice. Every word you need to answer the question is right there on the screen. Remember that your experience has already taught you a lot, especially for SJIs. Choose the best course of action to solve the problem or make the needed decision presented in the question, which most often than not says, what should you do? Or what should the HR professional do? And what should be done is represented by the proficiency indicators in the SHRM-BASC. Last but not least, reward yourself after the exam. Plan to do something nice. I took myself out for ice cream. Final tip, earning SHRM certification is completely achievable. I'm done. I'm going to stop sharing and answer questions. Wow, look at that wonderful host of individuals. Hi, everybody.
That was great, Nancy. Thank you. I did have a question from Sherry, and she asked, what is the recommendation for someone with the CP taking the SCP?
Okay. What I recommend is that you first look at the SHRM-BASC and see the kinds of knowledge and behaviors that you're going to be responsible for, and then work with your supervisor and specifically ask for stretch assignments that will complement your current experience at that level. If you do a series of stretch assignments and complete them and get feedback from your supervisor about how well you're doing that, and then assess on your own how well you're doing them in alignment with the SHRM-BASC, you'll be fine.
With your presentation, Nancy, I went ahead and put the recertification credit and then also a mini slide deck of her presentation. So that way, anyone that's studying or wants to just follow up with Nancy directly, all of that is in the chat. And I'll put a few more things in there as well. Oh, Coven just asks, are both tests 134 questions? Was it
Yes,
previously more?
it was. Yeah. That's part of the burden of being a good test developer. You have to constantly study how you can be making the test better. And we work with our accrediting body, and we determine that we can maintain the appropriate levels of reliability and validity by having shorter exams. So I think the exams have been shortened twice in the last 10 years. Yeah.
Good to know.
And they may be shortened in the future. Stay tuned, but not right now. Still 134. Do you recommend a course at a university? There's a variety of ways to prepare courses at universities. If they're an official SHRM education partner, they teach the SHRM learning system. And no, oh, Coven, no, the tests were never 400. The most they were was 180. And then it was shortened to 160 and now 134. Sure thing. So to the question about the university program, yeah, there are official SHRM education partners. If you go on the SHRM website and look at the SHRM learning system information under the prepare for the exam tab, there's a link to all of the official SHRM education partners. Most of them are universities. Oh, sure. You're welcome, Beth. Yeah, I think test anxiety is something that a lot of candidates have. There's a good section in the study guide on how to manage test anxiety. But I think over time, having talked to literally thousands of candidates and hearing them tell their stories of their test anxiety, I think that probably the starting point for everybody needs to be a commitment to not psych yourself out. Um, time and time again, people that I talk to after the fact who have not passed the exam have uniformly said to me, which is very disappointing, yeah, I didn't think I was going to pass. I just thought I would take it and see what happened. Yeah, don't do that to yourself. And that's why I always say that passing the exam is completely achievable. I'd rather have people go in with a mindset of I have studied my content. I have recalled my great experience. I am combining them and I'm going to nail this test. I'm going to pass this test. And then if something goes awry and you miss it by a little bit, then we help you look at your results and say, oh, it looks like you might need a little bit more studying in this area to get it across the finish line. But it's never a situation, in my mind at least, that you ever should say in anything that you're trying to achieve, I'll just give it a shot and see what happens. I probably won't do well. No, don't do that to yourself. That's what the whole starting with the positive thinking is all about.
Wise words, and thank you, Nancy. I know we're nearing 1 p.m., so I just wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone here, and of course to Nancy for that fantastic presentation. Even though I took the SHRM, it kind of made me want to take it again just for more insights, and I really wish I had that. So thank you so much.
You're
And for
welcome.
everyone that is here, I did go ahead and put the credit and the deck in the chat. Just a few more notes as well. I do have a survey for those that would like to take just feedback about HR like a boss and what you'd like to see for future sessions as well. But if there aren't any other questions or comments, Nancy, would you like to say anything else before we close out?
Um, just good luck on the exam. Happy studying. Anyone that has any questions, my email address is included in the deck. And John alluded to me retiring, which don't worry, won't happen until after the spring test window. So, the one that ends in February. So it'll probably happen in the middle of the May to July. And, but reach out and email me anytime. And if it's a really tough question that the rest of the staff doesn't know how to answer, which I doubt, they know how to text me and get the answer. Always a pleasure to help.
Well said. Oh,
Congratulations on that, Nancy.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
you very much.
John. Very
It's
excited.
amazing.
thank
Thank you.
you.
You've earned it,
Thank you.
and you'll be
Yes,
missed.
thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're very sweet.
A lot of thank yous in the comments. I love it. And Johnny said, my 2 cents, no test prepare me for the SHRM. It really is knowing your stuff. I agree. The right mindset is the play here. Don't have expectations about what you think the exam is going to look like because it's not going to be what you expect. Thank you,
Exams
Johnny, for that.
rarely are, right?
It's great to see you all. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you.